He appears to be out already anyway. William, where were you supposed to be? I am so tired of this. I told you that's a lot of fun. So you need to listen to me what I tell you so I know where you are. Understand? Because if you do not obey, you're going to need to sit down for a minute. Understand? Sit, please. I will tell you when you make it up. Understand? Okay? You can do this while you're sitting. Okay? I didn't hear you. What you said? What you said? No. Okay.
What is going on with your hair?
I got a cat! I did! I got a cat! I swear! We got rid of our dog. Or the movie. So, like, I had time for it, but like, I didn't want to be by myself. So I have a cat now. So I don't Do you want some candy cake? I gotta hold back because mine, the one that she was eating, I guess what she really didn't have food, so to make her sick, so I got so that she did, so she got back like a It's hard. I think I'm gonna have a litter box. The oil get really gross. And I guess they trade their things. There's just 7 in there. Make some company ourselves. And then I got some deodorizer.
Finish your Bible school program.
All right, get over here. Give me a good morning, Miss Lily. Good morning, guys.
Like Monday when I came here, I was seriously so mad that I was ready to kill his egg the other day. Like after all the things, I was No, we're not his sons. It was this guy.
There's bodies downstairs. This is an easy fix.
Sorry. We might have accidentally dropped the fish behind the couch.
Yeah, I can't stay and think about it. Yeah, the bubbles that.
Okay. Here go.
What? Fine.
things down first. Good morning.
Great day.
to start out up front shooting people.
Yeah, well, that's why he asked if he could, and I said yes. Because he said Nana's not here, Papa's not here, and Bryce is not here, and
Yeah, and Rob and I are Rob. Yeah, and his, you know, I love that whole well, he works a lot of like downstairs and so of course they work all together. So she would tell us I love
you do know that that is the only person it works that way for, right? Because most of the time, if our life is going smoothly, it's because Bryce is telling everyone else.
I understand. That's funny. That is funny.
I've got two different kinds of plates. Hey Grace. Yeah. Is this yours? Yes. I'm gonna put it in the prayer room because I have to sit here and do the light.
Watching the live stream. I'm watching the live stream. No, I'm just watching it.
You didn't fix the couch.
I would if I would, but security.
service from what we normally have on Sunday morning. We're doing a family worship service, and so if all the kids can come forward, looks like a lot of you are forward already, but if you guys want to come forward and you can kind of sit in these front couple of pews, We're going to have a lot of fun today. I am so excited. And I thought maybe you guys could share a little bit with the adults about what you learned about last week. So, does anybody want to be brave and talk a little bit about what you learned last week? Anything you can think of that you learned? Go ahead. I love your answers, buddy. What did you learn about last week?
God.
God is a good answer. That's great.
God made us.
God made us. Awesome. I love it. These are great answers. What else? Anybody else want to talk a little bit about anything they learned? What, something fun you did, something you learned? Go ahead, Lily. God made food. Wow. Very good. I like it. Good. That's great. Anybody else? William? God made everything. Wow, that is pretty cool. You guys are doing a great job. Emma, go ahead.
God made animals.
God made the animals. We talked a lot about that. We had some cool creative slides up there of creative animals that God made, huh? Go ahead, Eric.
Joseph went in the water and there was a big storm.
That's about Noah in the water. Yeah, that is good job. I don't think we talked about that last week, but that's a good one to know. Good job. All right. And what else? Anybody else?
We're made in the image of God.
We are made in the image of God. Awesome. We're going to talk about that a little bit today too. So very cool. These are great answers. Go ahead.
God.
We learned about God. Yes, we did. That's a great answer, Braylon. Good job, sweetie. Awesome. All right, one more. Go ahead, Eric.
God made houses.
God made houses. He makes all the materials to put the houses together, doesn't he? Because he made everything. He created everything. We have a very creative God, don't we? That was a great answer, Eric. Good job. All right. Would you guys like to see a slideshow of a little bit of what we did last week? The adults, you guys want to see the slideshow too? All right. Let's go ahead and put that up.
Screen. Watch screen.
Look at you.
That's you, Colin.
Everybody everywhere, as far as my eyes can see. We're in the hands of love, we're in the hands of God. He's with us every step, so we never stop. He's got the whole world in his hands, in his hands, in his hands. Every boy, every girl, every woman and man. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands, in his hands, in his hands. Those true and promises we can stand. He's got the whole world in his hands. Oh, our world, whole world in his hands. Never before and never again. Will there ever be one like you, old time you stand? My God is good, my God is great. In his sight we're perfectly wonderfully made. He's got the whole world in his hands, in his hands, in his hands. Every boy, every girl, every woman and man. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands, in his hands, in his hands. Those truth and promises we can stand. He's got the whole world in his hands. Yellow, black and white, every color, every shade. We are precious in his sight. By his side we are made. Red and yellow, black and white, every color, every shade. We are precious in his sight. By his love we are made. Red and yellow, black and white, every color, every shade.
adults, that was just a little kind of piece of some of the pictures of what we did this week. Did you guys, kids, did you guys see each other in there? Did you see yourselves? Raise your hand if you saw yourselves in there. Yeah, I think we got most everybody in the pictures. All right, so another way to help us teach the adults what we learned this week is to go over our main point that we reviewed. So if we can get that up on the screen, and on the count of 3, I need you guys to say that with me, okay? You guys ready? And adults, if you want, you can join in. That'd be great. So we can all say it together on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Creativity. Imagining what you could do because you're made in God's image.
If you want to know what I put in my box, I want you to say it again. Really, really loud.
Okay.
How many want to know what's in my box? All right. I need a drum roll, please. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Creativity. Imagining what you could do because you're made in God's image.
Becky, you want to know what I learned at Vacation Bible School?
I do. I really want to know what you learned last week.
I thought it was awesome. I learned that I am so creative and that I'm amazing. In fact, I created something amazing, a whole character. I'm now a ventriloquist.
You are?
I am.
Wow.
Would you like to see it?
I would love
Okay.
to. I would love to
All
see
right,
this.
all right.
Yes, most definitely.
Let me see. Oh, stop. Okay. Oh. There he is.
Wow.
Yes. Hello, Becky.
Hi.
You know what his name is? Money.
Oh,
You want to know?
Money?
Yeah, you want to know why his name is Money?
yes, I do.
Because money talks. That's right. Money talks. See, all right, amazing. Wait, you want to give him a kiss?
No.
You sure? Because
I'm pretty sure. I don't think that's probably
how about a
appropriate
joke?
right now.
You want a joke?
I would love to hear a joke. Yes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Hula.
Hula hoop. Hula hoop. That's pretty good.
You
I
want
like
to hear
it.
another one? This is a good
I
one.
do.
This is appropriate for church.
Okay,
All
good.
right?
That's we need appropriate jokes. That's good.
What did God say when he decided to flood the world?
I don't know.
Don't worry, I know a guy. Amazing.
It's pretty bad.
I'm such an amazing ventriloquist, aren't I?
You are
I'm
amazing.
so
Yes, you are
creative.
amazing.
It is so cool how creative I am.
Okay, yes, Rob, you are
Yeah.
very amazing and creative, but I don't think that's the point that we tried to learn about today.
A little too much?
Yeah.
It's okay.
No.
It's okay. I also came up with a whole new music genre.
Okay.
Yes, it's called rap yodel.
Oh.
It's
You guys
quite
want to hear
amazing.
some rap yodeling?
Oh, I wrote a song about BBS.
Okay,
Okay, it's very
let's-
good.
all right, let's
Very
hear
good.
it.
I just want to hear it. Okay. Here we go.
Hey, alright.
BBS was great and very, very funny.
Hey.
And that food that Stacy made was yummy. The Credible host, Becky, she kind of did an okay job.
Hey. Yes, you did.
But it wasn't anywhere as near as that incredible pastor. Yes! Right, I should applaud. I'm amazing and creative.
Wait. Okay. Good job giving that hand, guys, but I think he's missing the point.
I did.
Yeah, you're missing the point. Let's put it back up
Yes,
there so we can
Josh,
read
put it up there so I can prove to
Yes,
her.
okay.
Look, creativity, imagine what you could do.
Oh, no, wait. Yes.
Look at
That
the
is
things that I can do.
He is missing something major here. That is the beginning of the point, but if you read the rest, creativity, imagining what you could do because,
imagining-
no, stop.
Well, okay, wait.
Because you are made in God's image.
Yeah, but
What we learned last week was not about what we can do, it's about what God can do. That's what we're supposed to be
But
focusing
aren't I
on.
great?
You are great. Listen, I think maybe, Rob, you need to listen and pay attention to today's family worship service, and then we'll see what we can learn from it.
Can Money come and join us?
I think Money better stay downstairs, probably.
Oh, really? Okay. What? You know what? Do you think they'll have me rap yodeling?
Oh no. I think we should leave it up to our worship team to lead us in worship, and that'll be some
She's
pretty
so
amazing.
boring with
No,
all her
she does
stuff.
a
I
great
don't
job
know.
leading
You
worship.
know,
Rob,
give me some
come
rap
on, we gotta
yodel.
rap.
Let's give him a hand, everybody. Okay, so now we're going to take a couple of minutes and we're going to sing some awesome songs so you guys can stand up. Kids, you are required to do
You're probably gonna need to go some, like, to that side if you're gonna do the motion.
Stand up.
Right there and do the motions or you'll hurt yourself.
around me. Everybody everywhere, as far as my eyes can see. When the hands of love, when the hands of God, He still set himself, His love will never stop. He's got the whole world in His hands, in His hands, in His hands. Every boy, every girl, every woman and man. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands, in His hands, in His hands. All His truth and promises we can stand. He's got the whole world in His hands. Oh, oh, I know.
All right, I don't know who you think you are sitting down, because this is not sit down school, this is stand up school. That doesn't make any sense, but you're saying it. And adults, I don't know why you're sitting down either. This is stand up time.
Stand up.
All right, so we're going to sing a couple of songs. We got 2 more songs, guys, and we're all going to sing them together. Adults, that wasn't a question of whether or not you wanted to stand up. Thanks, Dad. I needed that. Salute to the captain. All right, Kurt, kick us off.
Water you turn into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you. None like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power. Our God. Our God. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you.
Our God.
Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power. Our God. Our God.
If our God is for us.
If our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? Then what could stand against? Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God.
We're going to share one more song together this morning. This is Amazing Grace. We had a great week this week. I feel like there's a lot of parents. Thank you so much for sharing your kids with us this week. We learned a lot about being creative and learning about our creative God. So thank you guys so much for letting us have your kids this week. And thank you, kids. You were great this week.
All right, guys, let's sing this one out. We got one more song, so we're going to sing it out. Who breaks the power?
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness? Whose love is mighty and so much stronger? The King
in the clubhouse, and, well, a piece of her memory. And I guess a piece of my memory of her is really how you'd say it. Oh, Nana Krung, you are loved and missed. I remember when I was so little, and you taught me how to arrange flowers in this vase. Oh, I remember you taking me and we picked the wildflowers, and you would tell me how you were praying for me to be a big girl and have a family, and everything had just turned out just like you said it would. I had a great family, a great marriage. Oh, we had a son, and everything just turned out just like you said it would. Well, the son isn't just like you said. I mean, he's not a star football player, but he's exceptional in a lot of ways. I think you'd be very proud of your great-grandson. Well, mostly.
Were you just talking to somebody, Mom?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was.
But I don't see anybody. Wait. Were they invisible?
Well, you can laugh at me, but yes.
Oh no, Mom. I wouldn't laugh at you at all. See, I've been working on this for quite a while.
These are, I was talking to your Nana Krung.
Oh.
Your great grandma, and I remember when she taught me how to arrange flowers in this vase, and she was just so good to me, and I just loved her and missed her.
Yeah, me too. Hey, are you gonna be here much longer?
Are you in some kind of hurry?
Well, no. Yeah, I have some experiments to get to, and you just never know, you know?
No. But I know this vase came today. Your cousin found it in our attic, and she knew it meant a lot to me, and so she sent it to me. Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah. Yeah, it's real nice. I love it, Mom. I got science.
Oh. You're not going to do anything that's going to bring those people in helicopters back, are you?
No, Mom. I signed the international treaty. They're not coming back for a while.
Okay. Well, okay, just be careful. Don't touch or bother or dent or anything.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't dream of it.
Okay.
I learned my lesson from the mosaic.
Right. Okay, be careful. Have fun.
Hi, Mom. Isaac Newton first discovered light. In fact, this will change humanity as we know it, because I am working on something that will change everything. Invisibility. That's right. I've been working on invisibility. These fish that I had put the solution in about 24 hours ago. And so they've should have had about perfect amount of time. Wait a minute. Where are the fish? It worked! My invisibility potion worked! Oh, the Nobel Prize is going to be awarding me so much money. Wait a minute. Are they in here still? They're invisible! 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 Okay, it's okay. I solved the quadratic formula for pi. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to just fix a quick, simple vase. You guys stay here and swim or whatever you're doing, and I'm gonna fix this. Hey, Mom, just go to the bathroom.
And I need some volunteers because you might be creative in ways that you don't even know yet. Let's see. Abigail, Eric, and Emma. Okay, so the game is called Nugan Drawing. Here's what you have to do. You'll all have a paper plate, and you'll have to put it on your head. And you'll all get a marker as well.
Upside down or right side up?
Either way. Here. Alright. And you all get a marker.
Oops. Hang on, let me read it back.
You can hold it there.
Yeah.
Okay? And then I'll judge who's the winner, all right? So first on the circle paper plate, I need you to draw a square.
Now?
Yes, right?
With it on the head.
Yeah, on your paper plate.
Oh, not it.
Here, Eric. Here you go. No cheating.
I don't know how.
The paper plate. Okay. It's okay. Oh my gosh, he's gonna color his hair.
I don't know.
Okay, make 4 lines. Okay. Okay. Now keep it on your head. Don't look at it. Now inside of that square, I need you to draw a horse.
I don't think I can do that.
Okay. You have to
You have to do it on the head.
Yeah, do it on your paper plate. No looking. No. Here. Just try. Just try. Okay. Is everybody ready?
Hang on. I don't know how to do rectangles.
Yeah, good job.
I don't know
Okay,
how
are you
to
done?
go
Just try your best.
I don't know.
Okay, now on top of that horse, you have to draw a person, a self-portrait of yourself riding the horse.
Oh boy.
I can't spin this right horse.
Okay, then finish the horse.
How do you know I don't know how to. I don't know how to.
Just try your best, Eric.
I don't know how. Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
I really don't know. I'm going
Okay, now on top of that, you have to draw a sun.
Oh my goodness. Wait, sun like the
Yes, a sun.
burning sun?
Yes.
Okay, giant purple cat. Oh, not again. Why do you keep on going?
All right, time's up.
Hey, I haven't even started yet. Can you give me 10 more seconds? Can you give me 10 more seconds?
No, I'm physically incapable of doing that. Good job, guys. Here are their drawings. All right, and the winner is Abigail, I think.
Yeah.
And you win the paper plates.
Wow.
Okay.
Please call you
The most amazing thing you ever saw, or the most terrifying thing you ever saw, depending whether or not you're a parent or not. Wow. I had visions of like stain remover and I was shaking and stuff. All right, anyhow, it was cool. So, hey, we've been talking all last week at VBS about what? Anybody remember? How God created us. He created us in lots of ways, but what have we been focusing on? How He made us in His image. We've been talking about how He made us with characteristics like He has, creativity, inventiveness, all kinds of things like that, emotions. God has made us in what kind of way? Anybody remember? A boring way? I'll give you a hint. It's in our memory verse. You remember our memory verse?
Wonderfully.
Remember our memory verse?
Why don't you just say the memory?
Because I don't. There we go. How you made me
is
very good. How you made me is amazing and wonderful.
I praise you for that.
I praise you for that. He made us amazing and wonderful. And we talked about last week, and Becky mentioned this earlier, Miss Becky mentioned this, God made all kinds of amazing things. He made all these animals and the creation and all these things. We talked about how we can make amazing things because God has made us. We talked about inventions and people who have made amazing creations. All that flows back to the book of Genesis, the very beginning of the story. We have talked about that too, how God made, everything was formless and void. There was nothing but God and this emptiness, and how God took it and shaped it in the mountains and deserts, and how he made the birds and bees and lions and tigers and bears and all kinds. And he made us. He made us in his image. So what I want to do real quick is watch a clip that'll kind of speak a little bit, remind us a bit about how God has made us in his image. And we'll talk about that and the story of Adam and Eve after the clip.
So if you lived in ancient Bible times, odds are you lived under the authority of a king.
And many of these kings claimed that they were gods, and they would even call themselves the image of God.
Meaning they had authority to tell people what to do, order things to be made.
Yeah, they got to define good and evil. And these kings would often make statues of themselves, which in Hebrew were called tselem, often translated as idol or image.
But for Israel, they didn't view their kings as the God. In fact, they were never supposed to even make images of God.
It's exactly right, and that was really unique for that time and culture. This is rooted, first of all, in Israel's belief that you can't reduce the Creator God down to any one thing in creation. But there's another reason. People aren't to make images of God because God has already made images of himself.
When did he do that?
Well, let's go to page 1 of the Bible. And the first person we meet there is God. He's the one with authority over all creation. He speaks and creation obeys. And he defines what is good and not good. In other words, he alone is king. But then surprisingly, as the pinnacle of all of God's creative work, he makes humans. And he calls all of them the image of God.
So he gives all humans the authority to rule.
Exactly, that's what he goes on to say. He tells the humans to subdue the earth and to rule it. And so this task that once belonged only to elite kings is here in the Bible the task of every human being. This was a revolutionary statement in its day because all humans are being called to rule and to participate in the human project.
So what does this mean? I mean, how are we all supposed to rule?
So the picture we get in Genesis is gardening.
Gardening?
Yes. Gardening. So they rule the earth by cultivating it, by harnessing all of the earth's raw potential and then making something more and new out of it.
So growing food for each other.
Yes, but that also includes growing families then, which become neighborhoods, and then they create communities where people are going to work and take care of each other and build businesses and cities that will expand to new places and so on.
So ruling is really the day-to-day acts of our work and creativity.
Yes, we take the world somewhere. This is humanity's divine and sacred task.
Yeah, this all sounds really nice. And humans have designed some pretty great things. But just as often we create things that cause a lot of suffering and a lot of injustice. So maybe we shouldn't actually be ruling.
Yeah, so the Bible addresses this. In Genesis, what happens is that God gives humans a choice about how they're going to rule. So are they going to use their authority for the benefit of others, which is God's definition of good, or are they going to turn away and define good and evil for themselves and use their authority for self-advantage?
And in the story, they choose to define good and evil on their own terms.
And so this is the Bible's depiction of the human condition. So sometimes we pull off amazingly good stuff, but just as often, despite our best intentions, we act selfishly and we create evil.
And so we're stuck as mediocre rulers making a mess of things.
So, of course the story doesn't end there. We're going to pause there for just a minute. God made Adam and Eve, he put them in the garden, gave them this amazing job of taking care of the garden. Yeah? And they were just, that's all, it was perfect. They would live forever. But he also gave them a choice to obey or disobey. What did he put in the garden that they had a choice about? Anybody remember? Food or zoo? I couldn't hear what he said. Food? Yeah. He put trees in the garden they could eat, all kinds of amazing fruit trees. But there was one they weren't supposed to eat. He says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 16 and 17, the Bible records God saying, the Lord God gave the man a command. He said, you may eat fruit from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you will certainly die. What's a command? Anybody know what a command is? Something you've got to do? Something to tell you. Exactly. Sometimes we don't use the word command a lot every day. We can use the word instructions or direction. Like your teacher might give you instructions, your parents might ask you to do something. When someone in authority tells you something to do, it's a command. But a command is a strong word, isn't it? If I commanded Abigail, stand up. Abigail, stand up. Abigail, stand up. Okay, good enough. A little embarrassed. That's a command, right? That's something that has to be followed. If you don't follow it, there'll be what?
Consequences.
Consequences. Usually negative consequences if the command's a good one. So he gave this command. So as they're going through their life, living in the garden, they're walking around. Now, if you were commanded not to eat a certain tree or do a certain thing, should you go near it? No. What did Eve do, though? We read in the Bible that Eve went walking and she was looking at the tree. So if I bring home a big stack of cupcakes from 83 Sweets, a box of cupcakes, and I set them on the counter, and I say, Emma, sweetheart, don't eat any of the cupcakes till after dinner. Now, on a brief aside, I'm not being very smart to put them on the counter because I'm putting them right where she can see them. But beside that, I gave her a command. Don't eat the cupcakes. Should Emma look at the cupcakes all the time? Do you think that's smart? Is that a good idea?
No.
Because if you look at the cupcakes all the time, what are you going to want to do?
Get disciplined.
No, that's a good point. If you look at the cupcakes, what's it going to make you want?
Cupcakes.
Cupcakes, exactly. If I look at the cupcakes, she's going to want the cupcakes. So Eve is in the garden looking at the fruit she's not supposed to eat. And when you look at something you're not supposed to look at, it's going to cause you to what? Meditate and think about it and dig in more and more. Like if I'm not supposed to have I like Mountain Dew. I really love Mountain Dew. I don't buy Mountain Dew very often because if I do, it'll be in the house and I'll think about, oh, I should have a glass of Mountain Dew. That would be amazing. So I don't keep it around because that's what I want to drink a lot of it. When we choose things we don't want, when we meditate on them, we think about them, they become the focus of our life. That happened to Eve. And Satan used that to his advantage. In Genesis 3:1, the serpent comes up to Eve and says, did God really say you must not eat of the fruit of any tree in the garden? Now, is that what God said?
Yes.
You must not eat the fruit of any tree in the garden? No. He said don't eat the fruit of one tree. What Satan does in this story is he's twisting what God said around to make Eve start to doubt God. He's twisting the words. God made a clear command. Satan's going to twist it and use that to corrupt her heart. But remember, her heart's already distracted because she's already thinking about the fruit. In Genesis 3:3, the serpent says, Eve answers the serpent, God did say, you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. Don't even touch it. If you do, you will die. Is that what God said? No. Eve says that God told her not to even touch it. But that's not what God said. God said, don't eat it. Eve has added to the command. She's corrupted the command. Just like Satan twisted the command into her heart, Eve has twisted the command away from what she was supposed to do. And that has causing her to doubt what God has said. The serpent goes on and says, in verse 4 and 5 of chapter 3, you will certainly not die. God knows that when you eat from the fruit of the tree, you will know things you have never known before. Like God, you will be able to tell the difference between good and evil. So, the serpent uses that doubt, uses that twisting of what God has said to make Eve really kind of lead her down a trail of a wrong choice. He's saying that this is what's going to happen. God knows you won't really die. Now, he's kind of being deceiving, right? He's twisting your words. He's trying to trick her into doing something, sort of, or trying to motivate her, because Satan wants everything that God is opposed to. God wants what with Adam and Eve? Do you guys know? Good. But more than that, what kind of good thing does he want? Why did he make us? Did he make us for fun? No. What did he make us for? Important stuff, yes. It is true. It's very important. God made us to know him, to have a relationship with him. If Satan gets his way and distracts Eve and manipulates her into choosing to eat the fruit, that relationship's going to be broken. And Satan knows this. He knows that she won't really die right then, but the relationship will be broken and they will begin to die. The Bible literally says, die and you shall die. Anybody been sick? Anybody ever been sick? Yeah. What happens? You get runny nose or fever, you feel gross. Why do we get sick? We get sick because we're broken, because we're not where we were. Eve, when Eve chose this, she was becoming fragile, becoming dying. Our bodies waste away. If you look at my head, check it out. I've got really nice hair right here. Just right here. Only right here. Up here, where's my hair? I'm getting old. My body is wearing, I'm not real old, but I'm about halfway there. My body is wearing out. And at some point in time, which is a lot longer ago than I want to admit, my hair quit growing. Because my body's changing, it's wearing out. That's part of what happens. Because of what Eve did. So Adam and Eve grabs a fruit, she takes a bite. And meanwhile, Adam is watching all this and says nothing. He eats the fruit, he takes a bite, and what happens? Do you know? Do you remember? They start to die. Everything changes. Paradise is broken. Have you ever been outside on a sunny day and all of a sudden a storm front moves in? The sky is blue, it's clear, it's wonderful, and it turns dark. It's like that. It's a sudden change. The very nature of them changed. They changed from being God's perfect creation to God's broken creation. But here's the thing. Why did God create them? To know them. So he wants to keep knowing them. So what does God do? He affects what could be called a rescue plan, or a way to make the world right. He finds a way, of course he knew this all along because he was God, to turn the things around and lead us back to him. And we're going to watch the second half of this clip and see what that means.
But that's not the end of the story. So the Bible goes on and it makes this claim that all of this was resolved when God bound himself to humanity through Jesus. And he showed us what it looks like to truly rule as a human.
So what does it look like?
Well, Jesus ruled by serving and by seeking the best for others, by putting himself underneath them and loving not just his friends, but also his enemies.
And that's not a typical way to rule.
And not only that, Jesus confronted the consequences of all the evil and the death that we have created by our messed up ways of ruling. And he takes it. I mean, he lets it kill him. And so when the New Testament writers looked back to Jesus' resurrection, they see a whole new future opening up for all humanity.
Jesus is a new way to be human.
Yeah, that's why they call Jesus the image of God, or the new human. And not only that, they also believe that Jesus' divine life and power is now available to heal and to transform us to become our life and power.
And this sounds really nice, but what does it really look like?
So practically, the Apostle Paul said it looks like people being filled by Jesus' own presence and spirit, filled with love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and integrity and gentleness and self-control. He says this is the new humanity that God wants to create in us, so that we become people in whom this new world, taking it into new, uncharted territory with Jesus as their healer and their guide.
In God's image, before they fell, before they ate the fruit, our creativity was going to be great and good. But now, how do we sometimes use our creativity? For bad, for lying, or for telling stories that are not quite true. Sometimes people use their creativity to make things that are evil, like, I don't know, or to steal, or to cheat. Sometimes things we think are being good, maybe be good, turn out to be bad. Like weapons are okay, but people can use weapons for evil. Or we can make medicines or chemicals that instead of being used for good become drugs or things that are used for bad. Our creativity goes sideways because Adam and Eve turned their backs on God. They chose their own way instead of his way. And don't we do that all the time? We choose our own way, don't we, sometimes? Now, the easiest way to illustrate this is sometimes parents and teachers like to tell kids what to do, right? Like give command instructions. Do you always like to follow those instructions? No. But shouldn't you obey your parents and your teachers and your leaders? Shouldn't you obey your parents and your teachers and your leaders?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Listen. But we sometimes don't, right? I work for somebody, I have a job, and I get instructions at my job. I don't always want to do them. Why? Because we're broken. Because we don't have that perfect image anymore. But like the video said, God had a plan to restore our image of God so we could be creative again. And that's when we were in Jesus. When the Holy Spirit comes into our life and seals us, our creativity can be restored. Our imagination can be sanctified, brought back to God's control. So the things we develop, the things we do, the things we create can be God-honoring and good for us and for other people. That's an amazing thing. The story of how our creativity was broken and our creativity was restored. The story of how our relationship with God was broken and how it can be restored. Why? Because why did God make us? He made us, fundamentally, the best part of how he made us, his fundamental purpose is to know him well. We should be sorry for that. That's okay. And so if we don't know him, what kind of life will we have? Do you know? A bad one. Or at least not a joyful one, not a fulfilling one, and we won't have the fullness of the relationship with God that we deserve. So this week we talk about creativity and imagination and how it affects our lives. We can make cool drawings on top of pie plates. We can make gadgets and gizmos. But without God in our lives, all our creativity, the bent of our life is sideways. It goes wrong. And we can't help it going wrong. And that's why we need Jesus in our life. To right our relationship with God, to right our hearts and minds so we can live for him and be creative in the right way and in a glorifying way. Let's pray. Father, we just come this morning. We thank you so much for your word that you give us to tell us how you created us in your image. You created us especially as the best part of your creation. You created us with an imagination we can use for you. But also we know how we broke it. And we praise you that you told us and given us the way back to you, where our hearts can be restored, we can know and worship you through your Son Jesus, and we can have our creativity back the way it should be, and live lives that glorify and honor you. And we pray.
Hey kids, I'm Lawson, and I have a story today that might just turn your hair white. I heard it from my little brother's friend Braden. We're talking suspense, Mission Impossible, a serious ticking clock. See, Braden and his friend Roland had this huge project due for art class the next morning, which is not good as far as Braden is concerned. See, Roland thinks his whole artistic creative thing is a breeze. He's like some sort of Van Gogh. He practically burns up the canvas. Ow! My ear! But Braden doesn't think he's creative at all. He says, art is not my thing. He doesn't know what to paint. It's like the blank canvas is laughing at him. And Roland tells Braden he can just paint anything, or sculpt something out of toothpicks and marshmallows and peanut butter. But even then, Braden is still stuck. And finally, Roland gets a little impatient and he says, well, what do you like to do? And Braden says, eat. And then his eyes get really wide. Like even wider than that. Because he's got the most amazing idea ever. He knows exactly what he's going to make for this art project. Pizza! So, he begins to whip up some dough, and then he starts tossing it. And when the dough is ready, that's when Braden really gets his Van Gogh on. We're talking pepperoni pinwheels, cheesy sunflowers, green pepper trees, a bacon sunrise, mushroom clouds. And when that puppy is ready to come out of the oven, it is a seriously creative pie. His teacher gives him an A on the project, and everyone gets pizza. The whole class gives Braden an A+ in lunch. So kids, remember, A divided by B plus C equals pizza. Oh! Uh-oh. And also this, creativity is imagining what you can do because you're made in God's image. Now, my hair's really not white, but as cool as yours is. See you guys next time.
Alright, this is gonna work. Yeah, this looks good. She's never gonna notice. This is gonna work. Yeah. This isn't gonna work. I need a plan B. Alright, time to go to plan B. I don't have a plan B. I don't have a plan B. I don't have a plan B. Think, Gordo, think.
Gordo, are you still in the clubhouse?
No time to think. Alright, there's only one solution that I can possibly see. I have to disappear. If she can't find me, I can't get in trouble. Alright, it's a little early for human trials, but I have no choice. If I take the mass of a fish and I divide it by the mass of a human, I might be able to make myself disappear. It's going to take about 3 cups of this solution for me to really disappear.
Oh, sick. Ew.
I think I swallowed one of the fish. It's okay. 2 more cups.
Gordo, can you hear me? Are you still in there?
Okay, it's tingling. I think it's working. 1 more. All right. Wait a minute. Why am I not invisible? Oh, my anti-invisibility goggles, of course. Wait, I can still see myself. Invisible eyes can see invisible people. Duh. All right. Now my mom can come and I won't get in any trouble. She can't even see me.